Are you feeling burnt out or even rebellious at times when it comes to the foods that you're eating or not eating, your exercise, or just your diet and lifestyle altogether? Well, if so, welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a concept that I created called restriction fatigue. This is when your self-imposed boundaries around what you can eat, how you can eat, when you can work out, and such turns into burnout and or rebellion, more importantly, and causes us to engage in behaviors that we do not want to engage in. So if you're ready, listen up and lean in as we elevate your mind. For those of you who are new to this podcast, we like to talk about our lives, our families, our friends, our dogs. If you're not interested, check out the show notes below to fast forward to the topic of the day. Also, if you are new to this podcast, we love for you to follow. And if you love this podcast, we'd love for you to give us a 5-star rating and review, as this helps us get out to more people so that we can change the fitness industry from the inside out.
For good.
Yeah, for good. Oh, did you watch that movie?
I did not watch a movie.
You had homework.
I know, and I had time too. But then I always think, I was like, I'll just watch one more episode of Gossip Girl, and I'll just watch one more episode of Gossip Girl. And then I know,
Speaking
and now
of,
Michael's invested in it. Yeah. Speaking of, what's the situation on that lately?
I don't know.
Okay, we're out of it.
So what that is, if you guys have not been listening to, is the Justin Baldoni Blake Lively situation. Now he's filed suit, blah, blah, blah. This shit's not going anywhere. There's like 17 different suits and, here we are.
Just don't work with him again. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah. The end. No, she has a right because it's actually like an HR issue.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't, this powerful woman doesn't do it, then the girls who are new to acting are going to get fucked.
They're going to be what's his face? Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah. Weinstein.
Gross.
Grody. Yeah,
What are you doing this week?
Mark is out of town. Well, now that I have the new dog, I had to cancel all of my appointments because Mark is out of town. Because I can't leave them alone. So I have a hair appointment on Wednesday. I have a TIA appointment on Thursday. Both I'm gonna have to reschedule unless this trainer gives us some sort of brilliant something today.
Yeah.
That would make me very happy. Mark goes, I think they just need to go at it. And I'm like,
that's such a boy thing to say.
No, he's been pushing the boundaries with that. I'm a psychopath. I'm like, oh, they're growing. And like today, I probably reacted in a way that I was not in alignment with my values.
Oh,
thank you guys. I like pulled her and I don't want to hurt her. I pulled her pretty, like jerked her away from Harlem because she obviously is territorial with something over here. Whether it's her toys I bought her, which I don't know, but I just want to fast forward to the part where they are best friends.
You're like me when Olivia cries, like, I react immediately. Michael's like, it's fine. Baby's crying. I'm like, how do you not have a reaction? Like,
yeah.
Oh my God.
No,
like, she'll be fine. I'm like, she's screaming. Like, it's just gas. I'm like, oh my God. I will suck the gas out of it. Actually, you want to know something gross that I learned about? Mm-hmm. They have these things that you can put up.
Gross too.
Yeah. Okay. We'll share gross stories. They have these things that you can stick up babies' butts and they like whistle if it's a toot or like let the poop come out. It's called like a windy or something like that. I know.
So you're just listening for it or do you like?
No, like it's like I ordered them. So we'll find out. Like if they're gassy or like constipated or something like that, you put like some Vaseline around this thing and put it up their butt. And then if it's like a gas, you'll hear like a little like wind sound. Or if it's like constipation, it'll help relieve the poo-poos.
Like, interesting.
Yeah. So Michael's very
one of those for Mark. Just kidding. Kidding. So our new dog Liberty's tail was fractured in do I call it the accident?
Yeah.
What if it wasn't an accident? The event, the trauma.
Incident. Yeah.
The incident. Thank you. So they altered her tail. However, and I don't know. I talked to Emily yesterday.
Oh, you did? So they're not in New Zealand.
I don't. no, I just go, I heard you're going on a trip soon. Take care of yourself. Or you need some TLC because she had said
Yeah.
something about giving her a little TLC.
Yeah.
So her tail is about 3 inches long, which would be normal for a docked boxer, meaning, when they have the little nub.
Yeah.
Um,
Why do they do that?
I have no idea.
Okay.
But the problem is because I don't know if it's a strength thing to like get, if her tail's still numb, if there's, I don't know. When she poops, it hits the tail.
Oh.
She can't lift her tail up. So I have to
Oh.
wipe her tail and keep her clean until we can see the vet. I just wish they would have cut it shorter.
Yeah, so it didn't get poo-poos on it.
Yeah. And the incision's at the end. That's why I reached out to Emily, because I'm like, I don't want her to get an infection,
What did Emily say?
She said, just keep it clean until you can talk to the vet. It could just be that she's still obviously recovering from the amputation. So yeah.
Gosh.
Thanks,
know.
Emily. Thank you, Emily. Yeah. Plus, it's like doesn't have any hair on it, so like it looks shorter than because they had to shave it. Yeah, this poor girl has had like 4 surgeries in the past 3 weeks.
Ooh, that's a lot.
So you want to hear my?
Go ahead. I was going to talk about that one girl's labiaplasty too.
Who?
The TikTok mom talk girl. She's like, I got my vagina lips done, and then she got her breast implants done at the same time.
Oh, who is that? I don't remember that part.
The one that owns the hair salon.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay. We love her. She's fun.
Okay.
Yeah, she's me in the group.
Oh, is she? I don't know. They're just so odd to me.
She's like the crazy one. She's like the one who drinks. Yeah. If anyone out there wants to help ease hopefully by the time this airs, these dogs get along. But why do I have so much anxiety over it? I know why.
Why?
You tell me what your thesis, your thoughts, theory.
Okay. I think because you love Harlem so much and you want her to feel comfortable in her own home, but you also want another dog. And then you're already worried about her and how she felt about Brooklyn. And so you don't want her to feel like this is replacing Brooklyn, but you want her to recognize that this is a new person in her life that can love her just as much as Brooklyn. But you also are a very friendly person and you like people to get along and you like to solve things for people, i.e. hence your job. And so it's very uncomfortable for you when you can't bring a solution to the table immediately.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I want her to be okay.
Yeah. Well, and you have compassion for the dog, whether she's the right fit for your home or not, you still want her to be okay.
Yeah. Here's what I think too. I think with training, this will definitely all go away. She's a puppy. She doesn't know boundaries, Right. It's like Olivia going, in your face, grabbing your hair,
Yep.
So that's what she's ultimately doing to Harlem.
Yeah.
And
or actually, I'm more Liberty and Olivia's more Harlem at this point.
Because you're all up in her face.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. And, they coexist in the home, which is great. It's not like
they're off to a good start considering the circumstances.
Yeah, for sure. They will literally, one will lay on the couch, the other will lay in their bed. They can stand in the kitchen together while we're cooking. They can get treats at the same time.
Yeah.
There's just something. So I'm excited.
Saturday?
Yes.
Monday? Yeah. Monday. So you're fine. It's 48 hours. Remember, they're dating. Now they're on their first trip to Mexico, like thinking of the Love is Blind people. So then we're really going to see how
I wouldn't go that far. I don't even think they're not even, they're on like their first week of Love is Blind.
Okay.
They're still figuring it out. I mean, the fact that Harlem was scratching at the door and wanted to come in, I don't know if that's more of a me thing or if a both of us thing.
What did you do when she opened what did she do when you opened the door?
She was outside.
And just hung out?
By the time I got to the door, she was sitting in the sun. Which is
okay. I see. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when I'm working in the back, well, I guess because Mark's in here, but she doesn't. Yeah. She's a
doesn't
very
care.
independent lady. Very independent.
Mhm.
So please tell me, please someone ease my mind, because I need to know that your dogs kind of growl at each other, that they're not going to kill each other, and that one day they'll be besties. And we
Besties
don't
are
call
real
them
besties.
we don't call them sissies, because that's what we called Brookie in Harlem. So we
No.
call them besties instead. Anywho, let's talk about something y'all want to hear about, other than my new dog, which you're going to hear all about. Breaking free from restriction fatigue. So I do this thing where I like to make concepts sound
Catchy.
sexy, catchy.
Yeah.
And my client Kelly was talking about how she, during the holidays, was kind of like, okay, I'm not going to have the treat. I'm not going to have that. I'm not going to have that. I'm still hungry, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to eat my food. I'm still hungry. I'm going to, and then by restriction fatigue set in her mind, because she kind of gave herself all of these no, 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 no's.
Uh-huh.
And for good reason. I mean, she was really trying to get over this craving because there's still an association with like craving and overdoing it. So she's trying to find a sense of control. And I said, well, it sounds like the restriction fatigue set it. And I just kind of said it, and then we went with it. Now it's a thing that she and I talk about often. Yes. And I said, well, what do you think would have happened if you just had a little bit of that thing, and said, okay, I, in my brain, want this cookie, right? And I know myself, I will have a little bit of it and want more later. So why don't we just break it up into 3 and then have a little bit, enjoy it, sit down, all the things, have a little bit later. Maybe even you don't eat the whole thing, because now you've allowed yourself to have the thing that your body wants, but moderately. And so restriction fatigue can very much be something that affects your food. But I think, really it affects your whole life, your whole life, right?
Yeah.
And so it's the mental and emotional exhaustion that comes from this kind of self-regulation, rules, and expectations you have on yourself. These imposed restrictions, it's kind of like, you can't, don't do it, don't touch the burning stove, don't do it. And eventually you're like, F this, and you do something you either don't want to do or you do want to do, but then feel some shame afterwards. And the way we're going to talk about it today is in the context of diet and exercise, but I will obviously put some mindset in there and daily work as well. So where do you struggle with restriction fatigue? Gossip Girl?
No, it's
That's
just so
opposite.
easy to watch. Yeah.
Binge.
Let's see. Restriction fatigue. It's not as much anymore, but my struggle was in having like the treats, because I had that like really rigid nutrition and exercise kind of habit and behavior. I would say behavior, because I didn't think it was a habit, because at that time it was like a lifestyle choice that I was making. And I say that with an eye roll for those that are listening. So I've even done it like rigid as far as setting rules for myself and expectations. And then when, like, just with this client, Callie was her name.
Kelly.
Kelly. You keep doing it. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, fuck, like I'm so tired of like living this way. But then there's almost like this guilt for, if I don't live this way, then like my identity is really challenged, because I'm recognized as living this way. Right. And then when you kind of want to give it up, it's like, well, how do you give it up without, throwing in the towel and doing like the all or nothing? And so even like for me, it was like, no, I have to exercise. Like I definitely wouldn't do something social, because I would feel like I needed to go to the gym and then maybe do something social. Or like the thought of how I would manipulate that schedule or that situation so I could do both was very, like, it became very overwhelming and very like, I always like kind of drive my hands back and forth, but that's like how it felt in my brain, almost like there's a jail of how I want to feel, and I'm holding on to the bars.
Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, I'm trying to shake them.
Yeah. So cognitive dissonance is having 2 feelings about the same thing that are opposing feelings.
Yes,
that's it. Can feel very like confusing.
Yeah,
very confusing. Yeah. So for me, it definitely was that same thing. Like I have to, do the workout every day of the week. I have to eat this way. I would get, of course, this also goes into disordered eating.
Yeah.
I would have to, really manipulate situations so that I could maintain these rules that I have put on myself. And I was just trying to think about something outside of diet and exercise that restriction fatigue very much sets in. And most, I think the thing that stands out to me was when I was taking on all of the clients and trying to do all of the work on the back end.
Yeah.
That goes with my struggle with being able to ask for help. And so I would say, no, you've got to take them on. You have to be the person you're the person who can take care of them. That's the rule, right? I'm putting on myself. They want to see results. Their friend saw results and that friend worked with you. You're the one who needs to take care of them. And what eventually started happening is I started to feel resentment towards my work.
Oh.
Yeah. And I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to do my job. And the problem though is I had this huge caseload of people. I call it caseload because that's therapy talk, but huge client load of people plus all of this stuff on the back end. And ultimately made me not be able to coach as well as I would want to. That's my own personal perception, but I also know that my coaching is above par when it comes to other coaches. So my clients got what obviously they were looking for, but I did not show up for myself in the way I wanted to. And, that was the kind of restriction fatigue part, this kind of resentment setting in of like, oh, I've got to help all of these people when I literally am the one who put those rules on myself. Like all these people need all this help from me. And I deliberately did that to myself, but then got so fatigued that it didn't burn me out. Luckily, I was aware of it. And then I was able to shift.
Yeah.
Yes. I was able to shift. I was able to hire people. I was able to ask for help. And that saved me from that. But I could have literally been like, I remember when I was not doing this particular job, I would switch jobs like every 2 years.
Oh, really?
I would just be like, I get so burnt out because of that same, like the same rules I would have on myself. So,
I think that's an important thing that you brought up though, because it's not necessarily the environment, it's the self that has this.
Oh, absolutely.
So, like, for example, for me, it's not necessarily like the CrossFit environment that made me have those like rigid kind of restrictions. And like, because they promoted the paleo diet at the time and they promoted like work out all the time and do the certain things back, when was that? In 2012-ish. So like, I think what they have now is a bit different and more evolved for some flexibility, but at that time, it certainly didn't feel that way. And it wouldn't matter if it was a CrossFit environment compared to like just a gym bro environment, because I would have done the same thing, or like an anytime fitness. And so what you're saying too is it wasn't the job that was the problem. It was my restriction rules that I put on myself that were the problem. And I think a lot of people will point to the external thing rather than saying, oh, this is an internal me thing.
Absolutely. Well, if you think about it, like, so let's just use Kelly, right? So she kind of said, yes. She said, I'm not going to eat that. 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 I want that. I'm not going to eat it. I'm not going to eat it. I'm going to stick to my calories.
Yeah.
Whether she was on keto, carnivore, intermittent fasting, whatever diet, doesn't matter. She's still going to have this in her head.
Yeah.
Right. And learning to almost, I don't want to say the word give in, like trust the body.
Yeah.
And meet your needs of having that thing in a way that feels satisfying to you is ultimately what's going to, combat restriction fatigue. So, with that said, let's go into kind of, the diet and nutrition. So we have this increased craving, as we talked about with Kelly. We restrict it. Now, in her case, we've worked a lot on this, right? And she's very aware. She now can have situations where she has a craving and maybe overeats or even has a binge, quote unquote. And instead of shaming herself, she's now gone into a curiosity, and she's
Oh.
able to continue to stay connected with herself, meaning her thoughts, her feelings, her actions, her body, instead of dissociating and pulling away from herself, which she normally would do in that case. So she's done a lot of work around this. However, for most people, they're so disconnected from what they want, right? And that's where this belief of, so external belief, if I cut the carbs, I'll lose the weight. If I lose the weight, I will be accepted in society. Okay.
Right.
So then I cut the carbs. I put all this restriction. I can't have sugars, fruits, treats, so. And I white knuckle my way through it, even though authentic self, right? So that was external. Internal self says, well, I need some energy. Let's just start there. Need a bit of energy, right? Or, oh, the apple turnover reminds me of my grandma. I'd like to have that connection to my grandma right now. Or I don't want to eat a lettuce burger because it's disgusting, right? Our faces.
Yeah, it doesn't stay together very well either.
True. And so we've got to look at that, of this disconnection from our authentic self, which can create a lot of frustration, right?
Yeah.
And deprivation and resentment, like I talked about, in the body and in the brain. And eventually we're going to give in, but because we've been so restricted, we're going to overcorrect.
Yeah.
And go away with our rules. We're going to rebel almost, right? Because like, think of rules in school. If you think that they're too conservative, think of like anarchy, right? It's like your resolution to restrictive fatigue is like anarchy, going the exact opposite direction, going a little bit crazy.
So what we're talking about specifically is like the symptoms that you'll see with restricting the diet and the nutrition aspects when we're talking about restriction fatigue or restriction in general. So once this person meets the fatigue point of continually being on these restriction rules, so they're going to increase their cravings. And it's interesting because not only you're increasing your cravings, it's like, to wordplay that, is you're increasing your I would say repetitive thoughts, like your obsessive compulsiveness about that food or that nutrition item.
Take it a step further, you're increasing the anticipation of receiving.
Yeah. And then you don't receive it, dopamine drops. So then you're all disappointed and it comes on this wild ride, which is interesting too, because you know what I found for myself was, if I would just have like Reese's, for example, I like Reese's, but honestly, I always think like they always taste better in my mind than when I actually taste them. But if I don't taste it, it tastes so delicious in my mind. And then I'm like, okay, well then I'm going to have it. You know, I've been thinking about it for 10 minutes now. Obviously my brain is saying like, just enjoy it and have it. I'm going to eat it slowly, mindfully. And then when I eat it, I'm like, this isn't actually that good. Like it tastes kind of waxy at this point.
Yeah.
So we're increasing the cravings. So then we're increasing that like kind of obsessive thought about it. We're feeling frustrated and deprived, like you're saying. Then we lose this motivation to stick to the so-called diet because like I'm on a low carb diet, low fat diet, keto, whatever, just plug in the word there. So then, as you're saying, we go into an overeating episode and then we circle back. I feel guilty. I'm going to restrict the food. I'm going to play the same pattern over and over and over again.
So I'm going to take that a step further and help people realize that you can get restriction fatigue from restriction fatigue. So that over and over and over again, eventually you're going to create resentment with your inability to be healthier, that you will literally not want to do it at all. And that's where we get into a obviously like figuratively, literally unhealthy place.
Well, I think that's where you see the people, like we had talked about, I think it was the imposter syndrome episode. I don't remember exactly, of like, you see the people you perceive like they don't care about themselves, right? Because of their body structure and whatnot. But actually they've probably been in this place that we're talking about. Because they restrict, they didn't know, like, it just doesn't work for you. It's not that you don't work for the diet, it's that the diet doesn't work for you. And so then they go, fuck this. Like, I'm not going to restrict. I'm going to live my true self. And then they just do whatever instead of saying like, no, my true self actually believes in my health and I need to focus on that.
Well, it's not even believes in health. It's we already have systems in
Mhm.
place, physiological systems that we're not staying connected to, both from a diet and exercise, but also diet and nutrition, but also exercise, right? Because like you have like a fatigue system and a recovery system in your body. You have a hunger and fullness system. You have these are systems you have. I mean, again, I always bring it back to Olivia. She knows when she wants to play. She knows when she's tired. She sleeps. She knows when she wants to eat. She knows when she's full. She stops.
Do you hear
Everyone
her
started
crying?
that way. I did a little bit.
Yeah.
Is she done?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Brooks got her. I don't know what Michael did because I hear him go, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
I need a Brooke for the dogs this
Oh
weekend.
my
Brooke, come
gosh,
over.
Brooks amazing.
Please, Brooke, come be
I
here.
know. Help us, Brooke.
Um,
Let's talk about the symptoms that we see with exercise.
yes.
So the symptoms with exercise, burnout, lack of enthusiasm that we usually see. And I'll say this. So burnout can look in like they just stop going. My experience was I wasn't enthusiastic about it anymore. It was something that I had to
Mhm.
do to just check the box every day. Like instead of thinking about what would make me happy to do, it was more so this is just what I do. And I have to keep doing that. And then I would
Yeah.
feel like resentment. So going back to that clash between a social event and then either or going to the gym, it's like, well, why can't I just like go to a social event? Like, why do I feel like I have to go to the gym? You know, and
Mhm.
so I'm not even happy when I'm at the gym because I'm so stressed to get it done in time to get to the social event. So I still have time. And so
Mhm.
I'm not enjoying it. I'm feeling resentful and then I'm feeling agitated at myself. And so, like, really,
Mm.
what benefit am I getting besides I checked the box of
Right.
going?
Yeah. No, I agree. And we talked about this with the kid thing. Like this should be a positive experience for you,
Yes.
movements, like I love my workouts. And I create an environment to love them, right? But
Uh-huh.
if I'm forcing myself to do it because that's just what I do and I'm a worker outer and like it's not
Mhm.
positive anymore.
Mm-mm.
You've been hijacked. You've been kidnapped. You're being
Right.
held hostage by this thought. I'm pretty sure no one who's been hijacked, kidnapped, or held hostage is like, this is a great experience.
No.
So, just, except for you, I
Yeah.
did kidnap you. I purchased
Well,
you.
and
I
even like
created you
on
a
the
story.
flip side, the burnout of it, it's once you're burnt out, it's going to make it hard for you to be consistent. So going back to like your job, when you were starting to get into that burnout stage, I bet you it was hard to be consistent with your clients, right? And providing them
Yes.
the experience that you were hoping they would receive. You know,
Oh,
some days they would be,
1000%.
yeah, depending on the energy that you had that day. Some days it was probably great, like feedback and coaching, or even when you were in your other jobs, like great outcomes. And then some days
Mhm.
it was just like mediocre. So you're creating this like up and down of your expectations.
Well, I'd also create excuses for not doing it. Like,
Oh.
like not doing it. I would create excuses to well, I kind of did it.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I don't know
It
how to
was good
explain
enough.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you would do the bare minimum, but even then it wasn't like that awesome. It was like, well, at least I got it done. And again, same with exercise. Like, okay, I'm not enjoying this, but at least I got it done.
Yeah. By the way, we have a little visitor.
Is she
Little
there?
Liberty came to get some scratchies. So if you're
Hello,
watching on
Liberty.
YouTube, you got half of my face. All right. So symptoms with I
Social.
want you to look at this from like, okay, do I have restriction fatigue? And looking at it like, how is it affecting my life? And Amanda
Mhm.
already kind of touched on this. So, how is it affecting my life? Right? Because
Mhm.
that's going to be the first place, like we're already talking about, that you can be like, okay, these self-imposed barriers are affecting my life. And we both have interacted with an individual who has a lot of self-imposed barriers that unfortunately is not aware of them. And for me, I was trying to help her understand how is this affecting your life. And so, you know, avoiding social gatherings because I can't work out or I can't eat in a certain way, avoiding food groups, obviously, altogether, or creating a lot of rigidity in how you eat, when you eat, what you eat. Okay. Or like I said, just avoiding that thing that you want, so that's the easiest case. Like, I'm talking
Mhm.
extremes, but even just avoiding the thing that you want. I mean, think about your relationships, like
Mhm.
how you self-imposed, or like my relationships with my clients, right? How
Yeah.
are these self-imposed barriers creating tension in your relationship? So we'll come back to Kelly. If Kelly was putting so much energy into not eating that thing all day, how do you think that affected her mood? How do you think that affected her relationships? Right? And again, Kelly's incident is so relatable. So relatable. Whereas maybe what we're talking about is a bit more extreme,
Yeah.
but that is so relatable. And now the people around her are pissed. She's not eating the thing she wants, so she's pissed. It just really creates a terrible environment.
Mhm.
And that's, again, not a positive experience. So why would we want to keep going? Eventually, we're going to get so tired of having that wall up and then having to fight all of the secondary repercussions of having that wall up, that fatigue and or resentment will set in.
Yeah. So from my experience, like with the social events, it was more so of, well, why can't you just have that? And it's like, oh, like to try and explain that at that time I couldn't. And so that was really frustrating. But it also meant that I didn't want to be spontaneous. I didn't want to do something just out of the norm, or like if we were going to go out to dinner, I needed to know where we were going. And that way I could look at the menu. So, and there's a difference between, oh, I know where we're going to dinner, so I'm going to look at the menu so I can plan ahead, or just see what they have. Like, I'm a big, like, look at the menu ahead of time, because if I don't see anything I like, I don't really want to go there. But
Mhm.
at the time, I was using it as, how do I figure out where we're going to eat to look at the menu, so then I can make sure I can, like, go, I'm just gonna have the chicken breast with dry, and veggies dry, and then a side of a baked potato dry, chicken breast, veggies all dry. And like that would play over in my head. And then say, like, someone in the group, say you were in the cart and you're like, actually, I feel like going to pizza. It would be like, okay, like it would shatter me internally of like, well, no, because I had my whole day planned out around this dry plate, and now
Yeah.
I have to be cool. And so what would I get at pizza? Well, and so I'd be like, well, where do you want to go to pizza? So then I could look it
Mhm.
up real quick.
Yeah.
And now I would say, where do you want to go to pizza? And if you're like Domino's, I'd be like, the fuck, we're not going to Domino's. I'm
So,
like,
Mark, I wanted to go to the Domino's over here.
oh gosh. I'd be
No,
like,
the reason why is because there's a new Domino's, and I was like, I just want to get one of those pizzas you used to get when you read all the books. But yeah,
oh yeah, yeah.
so
So I could not be spontaneous back then either. And that makes it challenging, right? Because life is going to have spontaneous moments. Like, you could
Mhm.
identify as not a spontaneous person, but there are going to be things that pop up spontaneously that you need
Mhm.
to do. Or
Yeah.
even, for example, like at work, sometimes we would have reps come in and they would be like, what, I'm going to bring in food. Where do you guys want food from? And I would be like, no, I don't want any food. I would have the lunch I brought, because I was so rigid in that, like, I already made this food. This is what I'm going to eat. And it, like,
Mhm.
to have a rep bring it, and it wasn't even like, anything. It would be like True Food, or one of those other Flower Child or something like that. And I'd still be
Yeah.
like, nope, I got my food. This is what I'm going to have. And it's like, but True Food
Well,
and like Flower Child is actually pretty good.
yeah, it is. Well, and the thing is about spontaneity is an innate need.
Mm. Is it?
That's yes.
Wow.
So an innate emotional need to be spontaneous,
Mhm.
in moderation, though, of
Mhm.
course, like emotionally, and kids are very spontaneous, where they
Mhm.
just like say things and they're funny, right? And you're
Uh-huh.
like, we as adults have to teach them boundaries, right? But spontaneity is that kind of like childlike side of you that you're
Uh-huh.
trying to shut up, shut down, right? And so you don't have that playfulness, excitement,
Oh.
joy,
Uh-huh.
right? And so again, thinking about that is, what is that going to lead to? It's going to lead
Right.
to misery, you know? You're going to get so rigid that it can almost look like an addiction. It can almost look like an addiction. Like I'm trying to get this high that I can get from being spontaneous and like go out with my friends. I'm going to look for that in the rigid, unhealthy behavior. When really the underneath thing that I want is spontaneity, because that's a part of my inner child. Mind blown.
Learn something new. Well, and I'm like, that makes sense, because then I would be like, I feel the same thing that I felt like with exercise or the nutrition aspect with the spontaneous, like social aspect of that shame, guilt. Why can't I be like this? But I also identify with this. They just don't understand. So I'm resentful towards them, but then I'm resentful for myself that I should be able to do that. But then but again, like kind of that battle of the two brains of I should be able to do this, but they don't really understand my lifestyle and this is my choice. And so then I would rebel in some way of like, well, I'll just like you and I will go for pizza, but then I'll do the exercise to burn it off or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Or like, I won't eat breakfast. That way I took those calories, applied it to breakfast tomorrow, and then I'll fast and have lunch.
Right. Well, and what did that do to your psyche?
Oh, fucked me up.
Right. And here's something important is, so with Kelly, it was, I really want this thing, restriction fatigue set in, and then she over had the thing.
Yeah.
But for Amanda is, I need to do it this way. I'm going to keep doing this. But something else had to give. The restriction fatigue can also create, like I talked about, secondary symptoms that Amanda, if she wanted to, could have kept going with that thought process. Right. But where did the dam break in your life?
Like in myself, or what do you mean by that question?
You tell me. Where did all of those rules turn into a fatigue in another area? Whether that was physical, because your body started breaking down.
Yeah. My body and self-care. It was more so of, I just became like a shell of checking off what I had to do instead of asking myself what I wanted to do. Yeah.
So that's, again, a more, I wouldn't say extreme, but yes, extreme, and a more psychological form of fatigue. Whereas Kelly's is behavioral, right? Yes. And like being able to notice both, right? Yeah. Because it's not always going to be so cut and dry of, I really wanted the thing, I restricted myself from the thing, so I ate the thing and I ate too much of the thing, because now I'm in a rebellious state rather than an intentional state. Easy.
Got it.
What you went through was, I'm going to do this thing. I have all these rules, and something's going to give.
Right.
And what gave is your physical body. And I would even say like your spiritual self, because it sounded like you were just a shell at that point. And I remember being a shell of just like, I'm just walking around existing in this shell that's really lean. Look at me. Please pay attention to me, even though I don't feel any sort of connection to me.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had my restriction fatigue turned into, disconnection of self. And that's where we don't want to be.
So how do we overcome this?
Good question. Obviously, moderation is key in life. In the codependency model that we teach, containment and moderation is one of the skills to learn in all areas. So moderating, obviously, our food, having the way we talk about it, it's called Mindset of Matter. Almost the Mindset of Reconnection. Well, they all are both.
I know they're all your emotional self to get in touch with you, so you can live a better, truer life.
Yes. So, we talk about eating from a place of self-respect, right? So, what I mean is, trauma disconnects us from self. Our job is to reconnect people to themselves and their bodies and all the things. Now, we don't do that from a therapeutic standpoint because we are working as coaches, but from how we can do that, we do it. And just connecting back to the body, connecting back to our wants, our needs, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and being able to express those moderately. And what that ends up turning into is the flexibility to have the foods that our bodies need. That's our bodies. We're respecting our bodies by eating the foods we need, because our bodies run and survive on vitamins, micros, and macros, right? So micronutrients, so your vitamins, minerals, macronutrients, your protein, carbs, and fats. So I'm respecting my body for that. But also from an emotional standpoint, like we talked about, that apple strudel or whatever I said reminds me of grandma. Sometimes it's like the Domino's little pizza, or I'm sorry, Pizza Hut little pizza reminds me of my childhood, where I would read all these books and then go get this little, it's like a tiny little pizza.
Yeah.
Now, am I going to do that? Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, that's respectful too of my authentic self. And that's where we want to be. So flexibility is key.
Yeah. Well, I think just saying, it's almost like, where do I find the motivation? You don't, you just do it. Right. I told Michael that the other day and he's like, thanks. I'll just go fuck off. And
I'll just go fuck myself.
Yeah. It's actually what he said. But I think to be flexible, you have to, there's a couple of ways of, you're not going to wake up and just be flexible. But what I would say is either one, get support. So whether that's through a significant other and telling them about these things that you're actually thinking and feeling, or a friend that's been through this, or a coach that's been through this. But also when you're doing the flexibility standpoint is focus on the little things first. So for example, for me, there was no way you could tell me like, well, next time I want you to choose the social event and not go to the gym. Right. I would have been like, well, that's not going to happen. I was not in a place to be open to that. So I think in terms of being flexible, also being open to a challenge, but then it would, and so instead the question might be, so how about instead of spending 45 minutes at the gym, you focus on 43 minutes at the gym and then go to the social event, which that 2 minutes at the time sounded like, ooh, well, I don't know. But it's just kind of docking it little by little to show you like, oh, those 2 minutes, it's okay, right? It's not this huge transformation. And I would think for the nutrition part of, for example, like your client of always taking these things away, what can we add back in? So if we're, a lot of times what I'll see with people who have experience working with keto or carnivore is they're very scared to add carbs back in. And they know logically that not all carbs are bad carbs. Not all carbs are bad carbs. It's just the way we view them and how we integrate them. So maybe we add back in berries, right? Like low calorie, good for you. And then, but they have carbs, and just starting to do that kind of addition rather than subtraction and restriction too.
And for our girlies who are on the side of that, of I actually don't trust myself with eating the foods that I've binged on before, just adding small portions of those foods in and being intentional, right? Setting intention is incredibly important. That is that control. That is that moderation we're looking for. I intentionally will take this cookie, and you can eat it all in one serving, guys, if you want to, if that's your intention. Do it in a way that is respectful to your body, meaning use what your body is designed to really enjoy food, right? Because we have like taste buds that then connect to our memories of that food, that bring emotion, that there's this whole experience. Like it's not just coincidentally there. Now, did our ancestors enjoy foods? No. And are these foods processed that we enjoy usually? Yes. So nature, nurture. We've conditioned ourselves to, or big food has learned how to manipulate our
food
systems. Right.
Yeah.
So we won't talk about that here.
Well, go ahead.
So, I can have the whole cookie, or I can break it up into threes, because I know I like a little bit of something sweet after my lunch, maybe midway through the day, and then at dinner. And so I'm going to take this cookie, and it's perfectly fine for me to have that. I'm going to set the intention to have it and enjoy it. Right. Yes. So that's an easy way to do it. Listening to your body. And obviously, like you said, that's another thing that's just not going to happen overnight.
Right.
So maybe we just start with, I wake up and I say, what do I feel at wake? I'm a bit tired. My neck hurts a little bit because I slept wrong. I have to pee. My eyes are dry.
Mhm.
Great. Start there.
Okay.
And then I'll help you reconnect to yourself.
So practice intention with intuition.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
I. Yep.
I love it. I,
I.
Captain.
Mhm.
And changing the goal,
Yeah.
right? So we talk about this a lot where our goal is and I've done this recently is my goal is not to get smaller, it's to be healthy and stronger.
Yeah.
So when I'm eating food, it's kind of great because I look at these colorful foods and I'm like, this is so good for my body. Whereas before it was eating, it's funny because when I was what people would think is healthy because I was lean, I would eat like cauliflower rice and like
I did that too.
Quest chips. And a lot of my clients do use Quest chips because they travel for
Yeah.
work.
Not
I
hate
can't
them.
eat them. They fuck with my digestive system. Protein bars. And now I eat like my breakfast, sweet potatoes, 1 egg, 2 ounces of egg whites, turkey sausage, feta cheese, botana, jalapeno sauce. Let's fucking go. My new snack, 8 ounces of non-fat Greek yogurt, 1 Honeycrisp apple covered in cinnamon.
Hell
Honey
yeah, bitch.
with some more cinnamon on that bitch.
I'll say here,
And granola.
yeah, here's where I've come from. I used to never have tortillas because they were not paleo, right? Like they had you had to make like the cauliflower tortilla, some kind of with like coconut
Or like the
flour. I
cheese
remember,
tortillas. I've done that.
yeah, I remember doing that and being like, okay, like this is so great. Like, no, it was a fucking pain in the ass rather than just buying tortillas in the package. And
Yes.
so, I have like a breakfast burrito essentially every morning. So definitely a tortilla. And then now, and I used to never, ever, ever do like box stuff. And now what I like to do for a snack is I do Kodiak pancakes, but instead of water, I add egg white. So it gets a little bit more protein.
Ooh.
I know. Jenny taught me that trick.
Hey.
And then I do it with banana on top. So it's like this, I don't know. It's delicious.
That sounds
So
good. Maybe I'll do that
I know.
today.
Yeah,
I've
it's
had
very,
to. Oh, I did have something to talk about today. Maybe we can do it at the
damn
end.
it. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, this will be good for this lesson. Maybe
Go
we'll
for it.
go.
Pop off.
But let's just finish what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was all. So I had changed like the progress marker, right? So meaning the progress wasn't necessarily how restricted I was and like how successful it was that I didn't have any of that. Progress may be like I had the tortilla once this week and I didn't die. Like I literally tell myself that, like, you had it and you didn't die, because when you start to go down like the restriction logic, it's like, well, if I do have the tortilla, I'm going to get all bloated and this is going to happen. And it's like, well, what's the worst? It's like, well, I could die. It's like from a tortilla, really?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but
It's
in your
very
head,
unrealistic thinking.
well, yeah. So, and
Mhm.
catastrophizing, as you
Yes.
pointed out, is one of my
Mhm.
traits. So it's always like, okay, now the progress was that I have the tortilla. And now that my progress is like, okay, I freaking probably have a tortilla every day because of like, if I don't have my breakfast burrito, I'm having tacos in the day just because it's easy to put together a bunch of stuff that I've got prepped, put in a tortilla, eat it. And there for honestly postpartum, you need more energies. We need more carbs. We need more calories. Tortillas is an easy, dense calorie thing based on the size too.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider.
Well, I think too, restriction fatigue, this kind of comes back to intention, but just like if you can like think ahead a little bit,
Oh yeah.
that's going to be super helpful. So that comes back to my situation. So my husband is out of town. I have the new dog, and both dogs they're not food aggressive, but they're food curious. And Harlem has been able to be food curious without another dog kind of worrying about it. Brooklyn wasn't. Brooklyn would kind of like come in the kitchen and be like, what are you guys making? But most of the time she wouldn't even get off the couch. She didn't care. Now I have a dog that cares. So we're trying to make dinner last night and I'm holding one while the other's in the kitchen. And then Mark was like, let them both come in the kitchen. Cause again, I'm psycho.
Death by fire.
And hyper vigilant.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, well, how am I now that he's out of town? Like, how am I going to do this? Right. And rather than putting myself into this, and this isn't necessarily like exactly what we're talking about, but putting myself into this state of, you know, I've got to do all these things throughout the day, plus get them going, plus, you know, that I would get fatigued at that point. I already got fatigued this morning. And like I said, I pulled her harder than I wanted to. And that is what I wanted to avoid.
Mhm.
So I made this morning while he was still here, I made those baked eggs that I just put in a sandwich, right? And I made
Mm.
egg whites and eggs. I made sausage. So then I just put them in the microwave. I cooked my ground beef. I'll throw it in with something
Yeah.
easy, right? So I planned ahead in an effort to avoid the fatigue. And for me, the fatigue would be because there's a lot going on right now and
Mhm.
I'm emotional. So I needed to do something to help kind of ease what's going on so
Mhm.
that I don't take it out on them. I don't lose it because I'm at this right now. I can tell you guys, I'm at the point of crying because this is so important to me.
Yeah.
And I just also need to have some faith that this is going
Well,
to
I've
work out.
got that reminded me of another example of a different way that's not exercise and nutrition of restriction fatigue that I see oftentimes a lot with postpartum. And even I had
Mhm.
to like kind of uh, catch this in myself is in that first phase is some people choose to be at home because it's a safe environment, lack of germs, like baby doesn't have the immune system that we do, so we don't want them to get sick. You're staying at home, but eventually so you're restricted to your home, right? And you start
Mhm.
to feel that fatigue or like that dread, and you're starting to take it out on baby because you're not realizing that like going out and doing something either for yourself or just the household had that small benefit for you, right? And so we're
Mhm.
staying inside. So I had to realize like, oh, I need to like go do something at least once a week and let
Mhm.
her just be here. It's not that like when I'm like Brooke's here, right? But I'm still in the home. And it was like, I need to go and leave, whether she
Right.
comes or not, and get out. And just so that way I'm still not confined within my house. And
Yeah.
so that can be the same way of besides nutrition and exercise, but what I see for
That's
my
a
clients.
great example.
Mhm,
Of
mhm.
like, I've got to be here.
Right.
Actually, I'm proud
Especially
of you for
when
that. I was
thank you.
worried. I was worried that just knowing you, you know,
Uh-huh.
that you would be like, no, let me do it. And you already made a comment like, no, I'm not going to be that person. Like, no, let
Yeah.
me do it. You know, she can't get sick. I've got to be here. I'm the only one who can watch her. Like, I think a
No.
lot of moms struggle with that.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they get resentful of
Yes.
that baby.
Well, then they get resentful at dad too. Cause even I told
Yes.
Michael the other day, I was like, I'm not resenting you. I don't know. I said, I don't know the right word, but it's just like, I feel like a lot is put on me and you get a lot more freedom. And I said, now part of that is because I am breastfeeding. So I do have to be like available more so because we don't want to be giving her a bunch of bottles. Like we want to do like she'll probably have 4 bottles a week, right? Which is fine.
Mhm.
And I don't mind breastfeeding, but it's one of those things of like, but you get to like go to the shop for 5 hours if you want to, you know?
Mm.
And I can't go to the gym for 5 hours. And if I do, I've got to remember like, then I need to bring my pump, then I need to bring this, and then I need to make sure I have a cool like there's so much more to it. And he was like, I could see that. And I was like, also, it's part of like where she's at right now because she is so little, like, and she's not eating solids.
Mhm.
But I was like, I just need to be aware of that. And he's like, how can I help? Like, what can I do more for you? And I was like, our
Yes.
thousands of dollars of therapy has worked. And I said, yeah, I was like, I don't think there's like anything really. It's just more so I need to be aware of that and maybe just like try and if there's an option for an A or a B situation to do B rather than automatically what I would do.
Yeah,
So,
that's a great example.
yes.
And for you, you have found support, right? And that's
Oh,
our
yeah.
biggest thing is like getting support around
Mm,
this. And, you know, with you, you have the doulas, you ask Michael for support, but
mhm.
also like for Kelly, like she can come back to me and we can label these things and create some awareness around them and teach her, you know, it is okay.
Yeah,
As your coach, yes, she's in maintenance body comp, but
cool.
you can still have the
Yeah.
cookie. It's not, you know, and in her brain, there's a lot of history to why that,
Yeah.
restriction fatigue happens, right? And rebellion, really, because it does come back to childhood, and, trusting herself and trusting the process. Support is huge for that. And obviously, the Mindset of Matter can help support you in your exercise, diet, nutrition journey, in teaching you how to be moderate, to work from a place of self-respect for your exercise and nutrition, and doing it in a way that's very compassionate, similar to like what Michael was, right? Yeah. Of how can I support you, or validating. Yeah. Okay. That happened and it's okay. Like, what did we learn from this? Because now Kelly knows if she starts getting in that kind of, you did with the baby, right? Getting in that spiral, I know the outcome of this.
Yeah.
So what am I going to do? I'm going to take a step back.
Right.
And set an intention, right? Do whatever I need to do. So if you guys are interested in coaching with us, check out the show notes below. But other than that, I think this is a good place to end.
Sister.
Let's do it. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. If you did find this helpful, or you think this would be helpful for someone else, we'd love for you to share the podcast with your friends and family. Please also follow us if you have not yet. Give us a 5-star rating and review. We love those, and it helps us get out to more people. Give us a follow on Instagram at Mindset of Matter Coaching or fitbyamanda.az. You can also find our recordings of this on our YouTube at Mindset Reconnection Podcast. And as we end all episodes, and what this episode has basically taught you, we want you to remember one last thing.
What you say in the mind,
you see in the mirror. Goodbye.